In a damp prehistoric forest, beneath tangled roots and giant ferns, a tiny Compsognathus wakes to the first light of morning. It is not the strongest hunter in this ancient world. It is not the largest, the fastest, or the most feared. It is small, fragile.
Low to the ground, the Compsognathus uses its tail for balance. But the forest floor trembles, signaling a much larger presence nearby.
The Compsognathus relies on its keen sense of smell to track the giant beetle. Every movement is
soft morning light filters through the leaves above. The forest is already alive with distant calls, dripping water, moving insects, and the heavy footsteps of creatures far larger than itself. It steps carefully out from beneath the roots, placing each tiny claw into the wet soil. Around them, giant fern stems rise like trees, and the muddy ground is marked with footprints bigger than its entire body. The Compsognathus lowers its head and sniffs the forest floor. Food is never easy to find, but for a creature this small, even a beetle can mean the difference between strength and weakness. Ahead, beneath a curled leaf, a large beetle crawls slowly across the damp ground. The little predator freezes, its tail stiffens for balance, its body lowers close to the mud, then, in a quick burst, it strikes. The beetle's shell cracks between its jaws, and the Compsognathus swallows its first meal of the day. For a moment, the forest feels calm, but calm never lasts long here. A deep vibration moves through the ground. The tiny dinosaur raises its head. Between the trees, massive shadows begin to pass. A herd of giant herbivorous dinosaurs is moving through the forest. Each footstep presses deep into the mud. Each movement shakes the puddles around the tiny Compsognathus. It crouches beneath the ferns and stays completely still. One careless movement could put it beneath a foot larger. Then its whole body. The herd slowly passes, chewing plants, breaking branches, and leaving behind a trail of crushed vegetation. When the giants move farther away, the Compsognathus slips out from cover. Where the giants walk, the ground is torn open, and where the ground is torn open, insects are exposed. The tiny dinosaur climbs into a fresh footprint filled with shallow water and mud. Inside the print, small larvae and worms struggle at the surface. It pecks quickly, feeding from the leftovers of giants. But another rustle comes from the ferns. A second Compsognathus appears. Both animals freeze over the same muddy footprint. Neither is large enough to risk serious injury, but both are hungry. The rival steps closer. The first Compsognathus lowers its head and gives a short warning call. The rival lunges. The two tiny predators snap and shove in the wet leaves, their claws scraping against mud. The fight is short, fast, and nervous. There is no reason to die for a few insects. The first Compsognathus grabs one last piece of food and retreats into the fern cover. It runs lightly through the forest, leaving the rival behind. Ahead, the sound of moving water grows louder. The tiny dinosaur reaches a shallow stream, where sunlight reflects through leaves and small flying insects gather above the surface. It lowers its head to drink, but its eyes continue scanning the water.
Must move quickly to snatch a
In this
meal from
world,
under the
even
nose of the
water can
much
hide
larger
danger.
sauropod.
Small fish flicker near the edge. The Compsognathus steps carefully onto slippery stones, testing each foothold before moving closer. It snaps once and misses. Water splashes across its face. It pulls back, shakes its head, and waits. This time, it watches the fish more carefully. When one slips between two stones, the tiny predator strikes again, its jaws close around the small fish. The meal is quick, but the stream is not safe. A ripple moves against the current. From beneath floating leaves, a small crocodilian head rises just above the water. The Compsognathus steps backward in silence. It does not run, it does not call, it simply disappears into the ferns before the watcher in the water can come closer. Away from the stream, the forest path becomes drier.
The Compsognathus, ever the opportunist,
and the
cautiously
air grows
approaches
warmer.
a scrap
In the distance,
left by a larger
the giant
predator,
herd continues
a
moving.
vital meal in a
The
harsh world.
Compsognathus follows their trail again, not too close, but close enough to use their destruction. A fallen branch has been cracked open by the herd's weight. Inside the broken wood, grubs and soft insects are exposed. The tiny dinosaur feeds quickly, using the branch as cover. Beyond the branch, the herd has entered a clearing. Their huge bodies move slowly through the plants, tearing mouthfuls of vegetation. To the Compsognathus, the clearing is both a buffet and a death trap. It creeps forward through crushed grass and broken ferns. Near one young herbivore, half-chewed plant matter falls to the ground. insects shaken loose by feeding, the tiny dinosaur darts between the giant legs. It snaps up insects from the mud, every step around it is dangerous. A massive foot rises, the Compsognathus freezes, then it leaps aside just as the foot crashes down behind it. Mud splashes across the leaves, the tiny dinosaur dives beneath a wide fallen leaf and waits. Above it, the herd shifts direction, bodies block the sunlight, the sound of chewing, breathing, and moving feet surrounds it from every side. After several long moments, the herd begins to move away, the Compsognathus slips from beneath the leaf and follows the trail of crushed vegetation. But now, the air has changed, a strange smell drifts through the forest. Blood. The tiny dinosaur slows, its head turns from side to side. Ahead, near a tree root, lies a small piece of carcass. Probably dropped by a larger predator, flies already gather around it. The Compsognathus approaches cautiously. Meat is valuable, but meat brings danger. It takes a small bite, then another. Suddenly, a low growl comes from beyond the bushes. The tiny dinosaur freezes with food still in its mouth. Leaves shake. A medium-sized carnivorous dinosaur steps into view. To the Compsognathus, it is enormous. Its feet press heavily into the leaf litter. Its head lowers toward the stolen meat.
Emerging from
The
its
tiny
shelter,
dinosaur begins to
spots the mighty
retreat, placing each
Brachiosaurus
step
herd
between
moving
dry
towards the lake.
twigs. It almost makes it. Then its side brushes a dry seed pod. A small click breaks the silence. The larger predator lifts its head instantly. The chase begins. The Compsognathus explodes through the forest. Body low, feet moving faster than thought. Behind it, the larger carnivore crashes through leaves and roots. The tiny dinosaur dives toward a narrow gap between exposed roots. The predator snaps behind it, but it is too large to follow. Dirt and broken fibers fall as the Compsognathus squeezes into darkness. Inside the root tunnel, it keeps moving. Its breathing is fast. Its claws scrape the damp soil. Outside, heavy footsteps pace above the roots. For now, size has saved it. The tunnel opens into a lower, swampier part of the forest. The air is heavier here. Mosquitoes swarm above muddy water. The ground pulls at each tiny step. The Compsognathus moves quickly at first, still afraid of the predator behind it. Then it slows. The swamp is dangerous in its own way. A slick fallen log stretches across a shallow channel. Dark water lies below, full of floating leaves and small bubbles. The tiny dinosaur climbs onto the log. Halfway across, its claws slip, its tail whips sideways to correct its balance. For one terrifying second, it almost falls. Then it reaches the far side and shakes mud from its feet. Beneath a cycad, insects gather around a rotting seed pod. The Compsognathus feeds again, snapping at beetles and larvae. Its body is still tense from the chase. Then the swamp goes quiet. A splash sounds somewhere behind the reeds. Something larger is moving through the water. The Compsognathus climbs onto a mossy rock to see above the grass. In the distance, the giant herd is moving again, this time toward a lakeside opening. Where the herd goes, insects scatter, small lizards run, opportunities appear. The tiny dinosaur follows from a safer distance. It moves along the swamp edge, careful to stay away from crushing feet. A small lizard bursts from the grass. Flushed out by the herd, the Compsognathus gives chase. It weaves around reeds, splashes through shallow puddles, and corners the lizard near a rock crack. This time, its jaws close firmly. The lizard struggles for a moment, then stops. The Compsognathus carries the meal beneath a root near the lakeside and eats quickly. Nearby, the giant herd drinks from the lake. Their huge reflections move across the water. The tiny dinosaur approaches carefully, choosing a small puddle inside a giant footprint instead of the exposed shoreline. It drinks from the puddle, hidden in the trampled grass. Then the herd becomes nervous. Several massive heads rise at once. Birds burst from trees near the forest line. The lake shore falls silent. The Compsognathus crouches low beside the footprint. Branches crack in the distance. A large carnivorous dinosaur emerges from the trees. Its attention is fixed on the herd. It does not notice the tiny creature beneath the grass. The giant predator walks past, so close that its tail nearly brushes the hiding place. Then it charges.
As the golden hour
the herd
begins,
erupts into panic.
the Compsognathus,
Massive feet
a
thunder
swift
across mud and water.
curious
The
scavenger,
Compsognathus runs for
emerges
its
from the
life. It is not the target, but that does not matter. In a stampede, even the unnoticed can die. It dodges between splashing footprints and falling plant debris. A young herbivore stumbles nearby. The large predator snaps at it near the water's edge. The tiny dinosaur dives behind a half-buried log. Mud, dust, and water fill the air. From behind the log, the Compsognathus watches the predator bring down wounded prey. The herd escapes into the distance. The lake shore becomes a feeding ground for a tiny scavenger. Danger and food have arrived together. The Compsognathus waits. It does not move while the large predator feeds. Only when small scraps are flung away into the mud does it creep forward. It snatches a tiny piece of meat and runs back into the reeds. The meal is small, but rich. It tries again. Other scavengers have begun to gather now. Pterosaurs circle and land nearby. Small predators move through the reeds. Competition grows quickly. The Compsognathus darts toward another scrap. A larger scavenger snaps at it from the side. The tiny dinosaur bolts away with a piece of meat still in its jaws. It runs into thick fern cover, away from the lake, away from the kill, away from the giants. The afternoon light begins to soften. The forest grows quieter again. The Compsognathus follows familiar routes and muddy trails back toward the shelter where the day began. It stops often to listen. Every sound could be a warning. At last, it reaches the old root shelter. But it is not alone. The rival Compsognathus from the morning is there again. Both animals see the meat scrap. Both understand its value. The rival rushes forward. The first Compsognathus dodges around the root and snaps defensively. The two circle the shelter entrance, quick and tense. This time, the first Compsognathus has no reason to give up its food. It drops the meat for only a moment, then grabs it again and darts into a narrow root gap. The rival tries to follow but cannot reach it easily. Inside the shelter, the Compsognathus eats the meat in fast bites. Outside, the rival chirps in, paces, then slowly moves away. For the first time that day, the tiny dinosaur has a safe meal. It rests in the shelter, chest rising and falling. Mud dries on its claws. Far away, the calls of large predators echo from the lake. The day is not over, but the worst danger has passed. As sunset begins, the Compsognathus steps out one final time. Insects return to the leaf litter. Long shadows stretch beneath the ferns. The tiny dinosaur makes one last short hunt near the shelter, catching small moth-like insects from damp bark. It no longer travels far. The forest is changing again. Day creatures grow quiet. Night sounds begin. Distant predators call through the trees. The Compsognathus turns back toward the hidden roots. It crawls into the shelter as the last orange light fades outside. Inside, it curls against dry leaves and moss. The giant world continues beyond the entrance. Footsteps pass somewhere in the darkness. Wings rustle in the canopy. Far away, something roars. But for now, the little Compsognathus is hidden. It has survived hunger, rivals, water, stampedes, scavengers, and the shadows of giants. In this prehistoric world, survival is not about being fearless. It is about knowing when to strike, when to hide, and when to run. As night settles over the forest, the tiny dinosaur lowers its head. Tomorrow, the giants will walk again, the predators will hunt again, and the Compsognathus will wake once more beneath the roots, ready to survive another day.